Broncos country, what is going on? It is your boy Mark here with Marky Sportsman, and free agency is upon us. And we made a video about a week ago talking about the free agent running backs that I think could be a fit or a legitimate option for the Broncos to be able to sign. And today we're going to cover the wide receivers. And before we dive into it, guys, if it's your first time on the channel, hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like the video. It'll really help me out. All right, so before we get to discussing about the free agent wide receivers, I get it. And I think for this team and for most teams in the NFL, building through the draft and finding the right guys in the draft that you can develop for obviously a better price against the cap is imperative. And that is what has gotten us to this point, is that even with the limited draft picks that we've had, we've done a really, really good job with it. And I foresee that to continue. But the thing that makes free agency really important is that you don't want to go into the draft with glaring holes and big time needs, right? Because once you do that, that is when teams will always tend to reach. They'll get players at a bad value because they feel like they need them, and they're really putting a lot of their eggs in one basket when it comes to drafting these guys. Whereas maybe there's a situation where they could trade back and it'd be the best thing for the team. They can get more assets, get more players, and it'll prevent them from doing that because they are too worried that they're going to miss out on the guy that they want. We have the luxury now of not having to worry about getting the quarterback, obviously with Bo Nix, but now after his amazing rookie year, we need to be able to get him better players around him, playmakers, guys that fit. And frankly, guys, just dudes that can get open, because it was very frustrating going back and looking through a lot of the games and watching the film, how many times guys just weren't open. Sean Payton would dial up a really good play call against a really good coverage, and guys just couldn't get the separation needed. And it put a lot more pressure on Bo. And to add insult to injury, he didn't even have a running game that he could rely upon. So really what he did during his rookie season is extremely impressive. But now it's time to get him some guys that can separate. And this free agency class has some dudes that are very much capable of making big time plays. And we know this because they've done it for several years in the NFL under several different schemes, different quarterbacks, all that really, really good stuff. So without further ado, let's dive into it. And let's start first with PFF's rankings of wide receivers, right? We obviously know about T. Higgins. I know Cincinnati's talking about they want to sign him and all this good stuff, but they got a poor owner. Poor compared to owners. And it's just going to be tough. It's going to be tough to be able to get him taken care of with all of the cap, constraints that they have and the guys on the books that they need to sign. So I think at the end of the day, T. Higgins is somebody that is going to hit the open market. Now, as thrilled as I would be to get somebody like T. Higgins, because I'll say it on the record, he's a bona fide number one wide receiver. But if you bring him in and you extend Courtland Sutton, does it convolute the offense a little bit? You're going to get yourself two really good weapons. And I think what it also could do is it could hamper the development of a lot of the young guys like Vele and like Troy Franklin. Now you're probably saying, well, Mark, who cares about Troy Franklin if we have T. Higgins and Courtland Sutton? You're right. You're right. I would agree with that. But you always have to think with the mindset of the future, right? Because you don't want to find yourself in a position where now you have a glaring hole in a couple of years. And you want to be able to see what these young guys can do. And it's about culture building. So I would be a proponent of T. Higgins if it meant replacing Courtland Sutton, but not necessarily in tandem with Courtland Sutton. You're also spending, that's a lot of money to be spending on the wide receiver position when you can allocate in other areas where you arguably have bigger needs and bigger holes to fill. Like in my opinion, tight end, running back, and inside linebacker. So I love me some T, but I don't know if he's going to work. And the projected contract is a 4-year, $112 million contract with 67 guaranteed at 28 million average. I think that's probably the floor. It'll probably be more than that. It's essentially a 2-year deal worth about close to 70 million, 3-year deal, maybe close to 70 million bucks. So it's a good deal overall. I just don't know if it's the right deal for this team right now. I don't want to see us making all these desperate moves because we had a good season, but I'd rather us make the right moves. You saw it with Houston. The Houston Texans had a really good year with CJ Stroud. They went out and they spent a lot of money in free agency. Didn't really work out with some of these guys. They didn't improve nearly as much as you would have thought that they did. So it's about getting the right guys for this team, which leads me to Chris the God Godwin. One of my favorite players. I've always loved him. Unbelievable talent, but somebody that fits this team's needs exactly with what you need, because you can extend Courtland. You can do whatever you got to do to keep Courtland on the team. And this guy plays a completely different position. You put him in the slot where he's by far and away the most effective. He separates. His separation scores are much better in the slot than they are outside. And he's tough as nails and he gets things done. And him coming off of a pretty bad injury, I think he dislocated or broke his ankle. It looked like it was dislocated last season. If all the medicals clear out, you'll be able to get him at a fairly discounted rate. Now, I don't think it'll be a 1-year deal, but this 3 years, $60 million, $20 million average, make it essentially a 2-year, $40 million deal. I'm all for that because you don't have the longest term commitment. You could always extend him down the way if you need to. He'll be 29 years old this year, so he's still got some good football left in him. And it'll allow for you to still have cap space to be able to spend elsewhere. But what's really, really nice about Chris Godwin is I really feel like he's a 2-for-1 signing in a sense of you get him and you put him in the slot. Now your reliance or your need to get a playmaking tight end decreases. It goes down a little bit. Do you still want to get significantly better in the tight end room? 100%. But it can offset a lot of those concerns with having somebody in the slot that can just be a mismatch nightmare for teams. Now, let's get into this dude's stats a little bit, right? Over the last couple of years. Now, he got injured last year versus it was on Monday night or Thursday night football. I think it was Thursday night football. He got injured at like week 8. Here it goes. It was against the Ravens in week 7. And before that, he was having a hell of a year. In fact, his year was so good last year that he was on pace. Had he played the full 17 games and kept up the pace, to have 122 catches, 1,448 yards, and 14 touchdowns. The dude was absolutely on a tear last year. And the year before in 2023, he had 83 catches for 1,024, only 2 touchdowns there, and then 104 catches, 1,000 yards, 3 tutties the year before. But look at the consistency over the course of his career. And in 2019, he had his best year in the sense of he had 9 touchdowns, his most touchdowns. He had his best year actually overall. And he had 9 touchdowns. But the other year, he had 7 or less. He's not this touchdown getter. He's not a touchdown machine, but he's a dude that absolutely moves the chains, catches first downs all day, every day. He's an absolute stud of a player. There's really no way around it. And at that, the fact that his age is still good. He's not too old yet. He's still got some good football years in him, and he's not going to command this huge contract. Those are all big pluses for me. But my favorite thing about him is the fact that he's a slot receiver that can just get open in space, mismatch nightmare. I love everything about Chris Godwin, man. He's tough as nails across the middle. He's got phenomenal hands. He's just really is, to me, he's the real deal. And I think he fits like a glove exactly. He seems like he's the kind of player that Sean Payton would love. He fits right into Sean Payton's system in a sense of like he can do it all. Is he strictly a free agent? No. I mean, absolutely not. He's not. I'm sorry. Is he strictly a slot receiver? No, by no means. He can play outside and he can be very, very productive on the outside too. But that versatility is huge. It's exactly what Sean Payton wants. He's even decent in the run game as a blocker in times where he needs to. So he's nasty with it. I love this dude. And yeah, he's actually very highly rated in the pass game as a blocker and in the run game as a blocker too throughout his career. He's also somebody that over the course of his career, and it's a long career, guys. He's been playing for a lot of years now, played a lot of football, had over 841 targets in his NFL career, and he has a drop percentage of 4.2%. It's very low. He's got, super reliable hands, and he makes a lot of those tough catches across the middle. He's always been one of my favorite players in fantasy, especially his breakout season back in 2019 and 2020. And I was just watching the dude play all the time, and he just makes plays. He's just good. It is what it is when it comes to him. So absolutely love me some Chris Godwin. And in my opinion, I think he's got to be the number one target for free agencies for this Broncos team, in my opinion, if you're going to ask me, because of just what he can do with this team. But sorry, let's go back into the PFF and go through a couple different guys as well. So give me Chris Godwin for sure. Amari Cooper, nah, he don't really tickle my fancy in any way. obviously he's super talented. He's the kind of guy that'll have like 3 games where he does nothing and then he blows up. But he's getting a little bit older, and I get it. He's only 30. Chris Godwin's 29. They're a year and a half apart. But Amari Cooper has a lengthy injury history. He's played a lot of football, and he just hasn't really aged well. Sorry, Amari, but yeah, I mean, similar to T, he's more of an outside X type of a receiver. Not necessarily what it is that I'm looking for. Stephon Diggs, same kind of thing. Plus, he's just a diva, so I don't want nothing to do with Stephon Diggs. DeAndre Hopkins, one of my favorite receivers of all time. I love everything about the dude. But where we are and where he is in his career, I don't think that that's a good fit either. Now, Marquise Brown can actually be pretty intriguing. I haven't looked enough into him. Obviously injured most of the year. He's just come back for the Chiefs. He could be somebody that I think we could take a look at. He's not going to demand a very big contract at all. He's a speed demon. He could take the top off of people, but I don't really know how he is as a chain mover, get open across the middle kind of a guy. I don't think he necessarily is that. Somebody that, he's 5'9", 180. So you would think that he would be, a slot receiver, but I don't recall him really playing a lot of slot. I really just recall him being somebody that, is in the Marvin Mims role where he catches the ball behind the line of scrimmage or short, gets him in space, or takes it deep. So I don't really know. Oh, also with the measurables real quick, I know you guys probably know this, but Chris Godwin is not a small dude, 6'1", 208, very, very solid size overall. Continuing on to the list, Darius Slayton. Shout out to David from David Talks Broncos. He mentioned and brought up this guy, I think in the middle of the season when we were talking about trade targets. I didn't realize that Darius Slayton's still a pretty young dude, but he's a good player, really, really solid. He's been in a miserable situation out there in New York, but I think when he's gotten opportunities to play, he's played really well, man. Good deep threat, good solid guy across the middle. So my number one choice, without a doubt, is Chris Godwin, but Darius Slayton would certainly be my consolation prize here. So curious what you guys think below. If there's anybody else that I'm missing or that I don't go over, hit me up in the comments and let me know. But Keenan Allen, no thank you. Just older. He'd actually be a really good fit in Denver. I don't know how much he likes playing the slot. I know there was times in the past, if I recall, where a coach has put him in the slot and he was good. He hated playing in the slot though. But maybe now I think he's playing a little bit more in the slot in Chicago. But I mean, he's still a guy that can make plays. So I wouldn't be super opposed to it. Reliable, good hands. But yeah, I mean, it's 33 years old next year. So yeah, Deontay Johnson is somebody that I was unbelievably intrigued with in the beginning of the year. I was like, let's trade for Deontay Johnson. He is a separating machine. Look at his separation numbers. It is ridiculous. But this year has proved to me that he's a huge diva. Coaches and teams hate him for whatever reason. I don't know what the circumstances are, if something's changed or what's going on, but no thank you. I'm avoiding Deontay Johnson at all costs now. Mike Williams is a bust. And that pretty much sums up the top 100. I know that there's other guys that are not listed on the top 100 here for PFF per se, but don't want to make too long of a video to go through all of them. But really intriguing names there. I love me some Chris Godwin for all the reasons that we had talked about. I think Darius Slayton would be an intriguing option as well. And we'll see. There's always going to be a lot of things that change because you got, there's whispers that DK Metcalf can be somebody that goes on the trade block. So somebody would have to discuss and think about. Don't know how much he fits, but I mean, who knows? AJ Brown is someone that's talked about as a wide receiver that, could be traded and want out of Philly. Those two guys for the Broncos and where they are now, I'm not a big fan of. I don't think that they fit what the vision of this team is. But it's important to talk about those guys because there's going to be other teams that have wide receiver needs that could trade and fill those needs with those guys. And that means that there's less suitors and less competition for somebody like a Chris Godwin or a Darius Slayton or even T. Higgins, right? So, keep your eye on that. And then Garrett Wilson's another guy that kind of fits into that category as well. So there's a lot of moving pieces to come, and I can't wait to cover it with y'all. So stay tuned for the channel for all the latest news, all the good stuff regarding the Denver Broncos going into free agency and in the draft. And enjoy the rest of y'all's night, man. You guys spend time with those you love the most. Don't forget to do that. Until next time, peace out.